and welcome to this year's version of how to upload to your server for interactive media web. I'm going to start out by talking a little bit about what a server is. So, as you probably know, everything is connected centrally through a server. All of our devices that we use, whether that's a desktop computer, a phone, a tablet, a gaming device, a laptop, any of these devices have to have a signal that comes from a central location, and that's what the server provides. A good way to think about a server is that it's an independent hard drive that stores a lot of information at a static address, and through both physical and wireless connections, the server is able to pass that file path along to any device that needs to access it. This is what a server actually looks like, or rather a server tower. So each one of these individual rows is a server. Basically, it's a very pared down computer that only consists of a hard drive to store a lot of data, increasingly more and more, and then a power source, of course, to keep it going, and many ports. So some of these are display ports, but most of the time they're just ported to other servers so that data from one hard drive can be instantly accessed from another. During your time at OCAD, whether you're aware of it or not, just by the virtue of paying tuition, you have access to your own server, or rather a partition of a larger server space. The OCAD web space, note here in the address bar, it is not ocadu.ca. That's because this was purchased and created long before the college became a university, so the U in the name did not exist. The web space, though, is a collection of every single student and faculty's independent server spaces, all gathered together into a single hub. If you navigate to this website that is highlighted in the address bar, you can always find the IT department's prepared PDF handout of how to log into your own web space and how to upload. But it's fairly text heavy. A good diagram with some numbered sequential prompts for how to move through it, but they only give you a recommendation for one type of FTP client, which is FileZilla, and I'll speak more about what FTP is in just a second. So this is a good resource with some graphics if you need it in the future, and a list of troubleshooting possibilities. So come back to this if you need it, especially in the middle of the night. Again, all you need to do is go to the main web space address, and this link will always be here. However, in the meantime, and to give you a more detailed explanation, we're going to take the files that we created in the CSS Part 1 tutorial, which look like this, and we're going to upload this to my server on WebSpace and talk about how the best practices for doing that and how the mechanics of that actually work. Right now, this is just a local file on my computer, meaning that it's not public, it's only private to my local hard drive. You can tell that it's a local file because if I click into the address bar, even though I've brought it into Safari, you can see that it displays it as a file and not a URL. file:// and then this is the file path on my hard drive to get to that particular file. So identifies the user of the computer, my username, located on the desktop, and then the actual file folder and file name. Any URL is a file path as well. That's how servers work. They're very large directories for organizing files. You could think about them in some ways as an online filing cabinet that is directly available because of digital networks at any time from any device around the world. We're going to start out looking at how to upload to WebSpace using FileZilla. There are two programs. So this is the recommended one by the IT department, but I also really like CyberDuck. So we're going to look at how to do that. The interface is a little bit more intuitive, but I'll save that for later, for the end. So if you download FileZilla, which is a freeware program, so it is free to download, and open it, you're going to get a window that looks much like this. So it's a lot to take in, and it's kind of confusing where to start. The best thing to do is that you can set up your server connection as a quick connection if you do it through the Site Manager. So go to File, Site Manager. You can see that I have a link to my own personal portfolio website here. I'm going to create a new site to create a new link to that site using something called the FTP, or File Transfer Protocol, which you can see over here. In this window, I'm going to give it a nickname, so I'll just call it OCAD Webspace. That seems very clear. One thing about OCAD, though, is that because it's a bigger institution, it's protected by our firewall, and so we need to use a specific protocol that anticipates that it's going to have to authenticate or verify our login and password every single time. So I'm actually going to switch to SFTP, and this is very important because if I don't do this, my username and password will not be accepted, and I won't be able to log into the system. In the host box, this is where we put the main domain name of the server that we're trying to get to. So in our case, it's webspace.ocad.ca. If you were to have your own domain name, let's say you have a name like Sally Wong, and it's at sallywong.ca, then that's what you would put in this space instead. So it's the main domain of whatever server you're trying to access. For OCAD and for many sites, ports are either going to be a 21 or a 22. There are other numbers out there. If you're a hosting provider, though, if you have one later on, when you get your own domain name, will specify in the FAQ or in the instructions somewhere what the preferred port number is. For OCAD, it's going to be 22. Okay, logon type normal. Type in your username. This is the first part of your email address or your student ID. For faculty, it's a little bit different because we don't have any dots or anything separating our first and last names, so it's just our first initial and last name. So this is not a format that you will share. I'm just doing my own here so that I can log on successfully and show you more of what's on the other side. And then I put in my password. And let's go back because I already mistyped a little bit. Okay, and then we hit connect. So you'll see the live diagnostics happening up here in the top panel, and everything is good. No red, that's a good sign, so there were no errors, and there were no warnings either, which are listed in yellow. So everything appears good, and what I end up with, is this view. You're going to have a bit of a different view than I will, just because I've been more active in this space, and so you might actually only have a single folder with www as its name, and that's okay. What you really need to do is place all of your files that you want to be published into this folder and not mess with anything else that you see. The rest of this is kind of back-end stuff, and I wouldn't make any changes to it. So I'm going to either triple or double click into the www folder, and then you'll see, on your end, a lot less than you're seeing right now. This is because, again, I've taught many courses, I've been uploading stuff to here for many years, so I've got a lot of files stored in here. You'll likely just encounter a single file titled index.html, which is actually a placeholder file, so you can delete it and get rid of it because it's just there to provide a landing page that essentially says no one has put up a website here yet. Once you are inside your www folder, though, that's where you actually upload your content so that it can be visible publicly to everyone on the web, and that's how you generate your URL. To do that, it's very simple. Here on my desktop, I have my working file folder. I've got my assets in my images folder, I've got my home page, index.html, and of course I've got my style sheet. I don't actually want to drag the whole folder in this instance. I'm going to double click inside it and then either select all or drag and select all of the files that I want to move onto my server and then just move them over into this window. you'll see some things happening in the background as they get uploaded. If you have duplicates of anything, so file folders or files with the same name, then those are going to ask you if you want to overwrite, or you can specify, you can rename, or you can overwrite with a different size or the newer file that's available. In this case, I have a separate file folder of images that is actually going to replace... Oh, sorry. Let me back up here a second. So this is actually a good teachable moment. What I did was accidentally drag it over this file folder here, who's a previous student that I was testing out their website for them. So I want to make sure that I drag into this area that's not directly dropping over another file folder, because then it's going to think that I want to place it inside that file folder, but I just want it in the top level or general area. So let's do that again. Okay, this time you can see everything uploaded and I didn't experience any overwrite requests. So what is new, and which we can see if I just switch on my column here to see what was the last modified file, then we're going to see at the top here I added my index file, I added a folder called images, and if I double click inside, then I can see that those are the same images that exist here. Navigate back to my www folder, and I've also got my style sheets folder right below. Very important to note here is that once I've uploaded these files, they are not affected or connected to the ones that I have on my local drive. So I can continue to make changes to these files, and it doesn't affect these at all. There are pros and cons about this, because it means that what you do here does not update automatically. You're going to have to keep going in and pulling these files over as you update them and reload them up to your server. However, it also means that if you screw things up on your local drive, what you had before that's still working is preserved on your server. So you have a backup copy that you can download and backtrack a little bit and start over again. So now that I've got an index file here, let me switch my view a little bit. Okay, let's go to, I'm gonna reverse that. Okay, so now that I've got my index file, this is my home page. No matter what other content I have in here, the browser recognizes this naming format, index.html, as the default page and recognized as the landing page or home page of my website. So how do I actually get to that? Okay, this is very specific to OCAD's formulation. You're going to go into your default browser, into the address bar, and type webspace.ocad.ca, and there you can see it's populating it for me. And very important, before your username, this is special to OCAD, type a tilde symbol or a little squiggle. And it's usually located in the upper left-hand corner of the keyboard. Then type in your username, whatever that might be. You can see here I have zperl and /. And then actually, if you're just trying to get to your index.html file, you don't need to type anything more because it's going to recognize it as the home page. Okay, so what you just witnessed was me clearing the cache out of the browser, because that was a previous version of the file, and now I have what looks like... Yes, it is. Okay, so this is the updated version that reflects what's in my local drive. So here I have here I have the live version, webspace.ocad.ca /tilde zperl. And then we can also just look at the local version to make sure that they are the same. So I'll just pull this down here into Safari and pull the tabs apart. Okay, so now we have the local version and the live version, and we can see that they're the same. All right, so then if you don't want it to be on the top level of your server, and let's say that you want to have it within a project folder because you have many different websites that you're developing, and that's going to be the truth for this class as well, then we can also upload the whole folder, but we need to make some changes to it. That's because I'm going to go back to my just general triple W folder here and modify this. Okay, that's because when we upload to the web, we can't have any spaces between the words in our folder or file names. It really does not like that, and you have to type special characters to indicate that there are spaces between words, which is very much a hassle for you and for your user. But also, this is a lot of capitalization and character variation, so it's probably best to rename it with something really simple and all lowercase that's easy to remember and to type out. So then, if I want to add this as a just sort of like a section of my domain, I can just pull the whole folder in, again, not over and over top of another folder, and drop it. And then after that loads, you're going to see this folder pop in. I can double click into it to see that I have the same structure, the same elements, albeit in slightly a different order, but I've got my index file, or my HTML file, I should say, the style sheets folder, my images folder, so that's all the same. So now in order to get to that page live, I just need to add something to the previous address. So if I return to my homepage address and then just tack on after that / what my folder name is, as long as I have a file in there called index.html, it's going to sense it and find it and still display the same thing. So now the address is just slightly different. I've added a subfolder afterwards to indicate that it's located in its own little grouping, its own little section, but it's going to display the exact same content. Okay, so what if you want to do this with a different FTP client like CyberDuck? I'm not going to spend too long on this, but CyberDuck is kind of nice in my opinion because it's much simpler in terms of the interface. It's more like a Mac in terms of the functionality and the dragging and dropping features if you're used to using a Mac. So let's just explore how to open that connection. Once you download it and open the program, you're going to click onto it and use this Open Connection button, and there will be a dialog box like this. So in server, you type in the same kind of idea here, webspace.ocad.ca. My username, I'm going to pretend that didn't auto-populate because I am using this supposedly for the first time. Specify 22, and then of course make sure that you're on SFTP and not regular FTP protocols. And then we connect. And then it's going to give you this little box here that says unknown fingerprint. This is fine. This is not a big deal. It just means that you're, because of the way that OCAD does their firewall, you're logging in with a sort of unique key or signature that keeps it anonymous. And so it's just doing this as a security feature. I'm going to click Allow Always and Allow, and then it's going to pop up with more of what looks like the same kind of thing that you would get if you were looking at a Finder window, you know, this kind of aesthetic. Oops, didn't mean to do that. There we go. And it's much simpler. So here I just have my triple W folder without any of the extraneous stuff. Same kind of idea. I can still organize it by these columns of what was modified last, the size of the file, or the file name alphabetically. And here I have those same files that I uploaded, and we can see that the signature is actually the same, so it's sensing the last time that the server was accessed and those files were uploaded. With CyberDuck, though, there's just a lot more drag and drop functionality, and there's this kind of place this back in there. That's a good demonstration. And then there's also the same kind of idea of having a gear or tools menu where all of the different features for a particular file are located. So it makes it a bit more intuitive and easier to navigate. But otherwise, it's essentially the same. One nice thing about CyberDuck, though, is that I can easily drag and drop to the desktop, and it places a copy of that file onto the desktop. So if I want to just copy and duplicate, that's pretty easy. And then the other thing is, unlike FileZilla where I have to right-click and delete things, on CyberDuck I can actually elect to just hit the delete key, and then it's going to warn me and ask me if I want to actually delete that file. So it's just a little bit easier in terms of navigating with quicker actions. Otherwise, everything else is the same. The actual server and the concept of the structure that governs it does not change. Okay, so I hope this has been helpful. Thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions about this, please do get in contact with me either through Canvas or by email. And of course, as you know, your assignments do have to be uploaded to a URL, as well as turning in the working files, so make sure that you get this down pat before your Dreamspace assignment is due. Thanks, everybody.